In the labyrinthine world of NBA roster construction, where every dollar spent and every player acquired carries immense weight, can a championship-contending franchise truly navigate an offseason defined by financial handcuffs and a devastating injury to its superstar? For the Boston Celtics, a team that has consistently been at the pinnacle of the Eastern Conference, this summer has been less about making thunderous splashes and more about meticulous, often agonizing financial tightrope walking. With Jayson Tatum's sidelined for the season, a collective sigh of concern has rippled through the fan base. The question isn't just about who they can acquire, but who they can't, and perhaps more importantly, who they won't. Are the Celtics truly embracing a strategic gap year? Or are they simply victims of an unforgiving new collective bargaining agreement and a cruel twist of fate, leaving their loyal supporters to wonder? How much patience can a fan base truly muster when the path forward seems so constrained and the dreams of another banner feel so distant? The Boston Celtics have been quietly, almost subtly, tinkering with their roster as the NBA offseason slowly unwinds. The recent official signing of two-way guard Max Shulga, following the earlier release of J.D. Davison, represents the kind of low-key, strategic moves that define this current chapter for the franchise. But beneath these minor adjustments lies a deeper, more complex narrative, one that is heavily influenced by the new collective bargaining agreement and, most critically, the unfortunate reality of Jayson Tatum's expected absence for the entire upcoming season. This isn't just about filling roster spots. It's about navigating a treacherous financial landscape while simultaneously acknowledging that their primary championship window is, for at least one season, temporarily closed. One of the most pressing questions on every Celtics fan's mind revolves around the possibility of a blockbuster trade, particularly after September 7th, when newly signed players become eligible to be moved. The tantalizing prospect of combining players like Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser, or even more significantly, a package involving players like Davion Mitchell and Georges Niang, to acquire a bona fide star such as Lauri Markkanen or Domantas Sabonis has been floated by hopeful supporters. Imagine the impact of a versatile big man like Markkanen, capable of stretching the floor and scoring in multiple ways, or the playmaking prowess of Sabonis, a dynamic hub for an offense. These are the kinds of moves that in a normal offseason would ignite fervent speculation and genuine excitement. However, the harsh reality as illuminated by team insiders is that such a scenario is highly improbable, largely for two intertwined reasons: financial constraints imposed by the new CBA and the significant blow of Jayson Tatum's injury. Acquiring a player of Markkanen's or Sabonis' caliber would mean taking on massive salaries, $46 million and $43 million respectively. Even if the Celtics were to include multiple players in a trade package to match salaries, such a move would almost certainly catapult them back over the dreaded second apron. Brad Stevens, the architect of this roster, has made it abundantly clear that the organization is determined to avoid crossing that punitive threshold. The penalties associated with the second apron are not merely financial. They impose severe basketball restrictions, limiting roster flexibility, trade options, and even draft pick maneuverability in future years. To make such a financially burdensome move in a season where their undisputed superstar Jayson Tatum is sidelined would feel like a monumental waste of resources. It would be an attempt to contend at an exorbitant cost without the foundational piece necessary to truly compete for a championship. Therefore, the prevailing sentiment is that any deals we see this season will be geared towards reducing payroll, not adding to it a stark departure from the aggressive spending habits of recent years. The equation will undoubtedly change when Tatum makes his triumphant return, but even then, adding another massive salary would likely only be on the table if it involved another significant name, perhaps Jaylen Brown or Derek White, going out the door, a scenario that seems unlikely and would fundamentally alter the team's core. Beyond the financial tightrope, another intriguing point of discussion among the fanbase centers on the perceived lack of athleticism on the current Celtics roster. It's a fascinating way to put it, as one insider noted, but there's a kernel of truth to the observation, particularly concerning the front court. While Nini's Quetta offers some verticality for lobs and decent shot-blocking ability, players like Luke Cornett, Mike Muscala, And now the recently acquired Georges Niang and Xavier Tillman aren't exactly known for their explosive athleticism. This isn't a team that will consistently wow you with above-the-rim finishes or highlight reel blocks from their bigs. However, it's not a complete absence of athleticism across the board. There are flashes of it in other areas. Josh Minott, a young, intriguing prospect, certainly stands out in this regard, showcasing impressive bounce and quickness. Derek White, while not a traditional high flyer, is arguably the best backcourt rim protector in the league, demonstrating elite defensive instincts and surprising verticality when challenging shots. And when fully healthy, Jaylen Brown remains a blur in transition, a powerful force driving to the basket. The impact of this perceived lack of athleticism will largely depend on the offensive and defensive schemes implemented by head coach Joe Mazzulla. If the team plays at the high pace expected next season, a lack of offensive athleticism might be less noticeable, as quick decision-making and ball movement can compensate for individual explosiveness. Defensively, however, it could be a different story. Mazzulla will need to be strategic with his lineups, ensuring that defensive versatility and collective effort can overcome any individual athletic deficiencies, especially against more dynamic athletic opponents. This will be a critical test of his coaching acumen and the team's overall defensive identity. Delving deeper into potential trade candidates, the Celtics, now officially below the second apron after the J.D. Davison move, do possess more flexibility than they did previously. While they still cannot take back more money than they send out in a trade, the crucial change is their ability to combine multiple players in a single deal. This opens up new structural possibilities for trades that were previously unavailable. As for who might be on the move, the most obvious candidates for both preseason and in-season deals have already been identified. Xavier Tillman, for instance, appears to be a prime candidate for a salary dump. If the Celtics have other plans for his roster spot, they might be willing to include some extra cash to incentivize a team to take on his contract. This would be a move purely aimed at financial flexibility and roster optimization, rather than acquiring significant assets. Georges Niang, on the other hand, presents a different scenario. With a reasonable salary and an expiring contract, he could become a highly movable asset if he has a productive start to the season. His shooting and veteran presence could appeal to a contender looking for depth. Sam Hauser, despite being mentioned as a potential trade piece, is unlikely to be moved unless the Celtics receive truly exceptional value in return. His cost-controlled contract for the next 4 years, combined with his valuable shooting and floor spacing ability, makes him a highly valued asset within the organization. The preference for now is clearly to keep him as a core part of their rotation. The ultimate wild card in any trade discussions is Peyton Pritchard. His market remains an open question, and whether the Celtics find an appealing deal for him is uncertain. The organization has historically been reluctant to take back long-term salary unless it perfectly aligns with their future plans. If getting under the luxury tax line becomes a paramount priority, particularly as the season progresses, Pritchard could very well be a piece on the move. His relatively small salary and the potential for a fresh start elsewhere could make him an attractive target for teams looking for guard depth without incurring significant financial penalties. The decisions surrounding these players will be a delicate balancing act between immediate needs, financial prudence, and long-term strategic planning. Finally, the question of the Celtics' final roster spot looms large. With Jayson Tatum out, the team currently has 13 healthy players, leaving 2 open spots on the 15-man roster. The most likely scenario, according to current speculation, is that the Celtics will keep that final roster spot open for tax savings. This would allow them to maximize financial flexibility while still having 3 two-way players who can be called up at any point to provide depth in case of further injuries. If the Celtics do decide to make another signing, perhaps bringing in a veteran like Ben Simmons, Drew Lofton, or Charles Bassey, it wouldn't be surprising to see them move another contract before opening night to get back down to 14 players. This would maintain their desired roster size and tax status. While cutting a young player like Jordan Walsh ahead of opening night is a theoretical possibility for minimal cap savings, it feels unlikely at this point, especially after his promising performance in Summer League. The team seems committed to his development, and a $200,000 cap hit is a small price to pay for a potential future asset. In essence, the Boston Celtics are navigating a complex and challenging offseason, one that is less about grand gestures and more about strategic patience and financial discipline. Jayson Tatum's injury has undeniably altered their immediate championship aspirations, forcing them to recalibrate their approach. The new CBA rules act as a constant reminder of the financial tightrope they must walk, making blockbuster additions highly improbable. Instead, their focus is on optimizing their current roster, managing payroll, and making shrewd, smaller moves that align with their long-term vision. This might feel like a gap year to some frustrated fans, a period of holding steady rather than aggressively pushing forward. But it's a necessary evolution for a franchise aiming to sustain success in an increasingly competitive and financially restrictive league. The true test will be how effectively they can maintain their competitive edge while patiently awaiting Tatum's return and the renewed opportunities that will bring. What's your ultimate take on the Celtics' offseason strategy? Do you believe Brad Stevens' cautious, financially disciplined approach is the right one, even with Jayson Tatum out for the season? Or do you think they should be more aggressive in trying to acquire talent, even if it means incurring significant luxury tax penalties? Share your insights, your frustrations, and your predictions for how this Celtics team will perform without their superstar in the comments below. And if you're as passionate about the strategic chess match of NBA roster building as we are, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more exclusive reports and dynamic analysis that keeps you on the pulse of every major NBA storyline. Your engagement fuels our coverage.